Hello everybody, this is the Professor Z, and Akihito, after his 7-month-long hibernation, has finally graced us with yet another chapter of Made in Abyss. And with a whopping 52 pages, it's no wonder it took Akihito 7 months to get this one out the door. And after waiting so long, I won't keep you waiting any longer because there is a lot to go through, so let's dive into Made in Abyss Chapter 64, titled Juusou. We start this chapter off with a very familiar face? Mask? Yeah, we're gonna go with mask. A very familiar mask. The one worn by the Lord of Dawn himself, Bondrewd. We find Mr. Dawn doing what else but human experiments. He is interrupted, however, as he gets word of an unusual individual arriving at his front door. Clearly worried that the visitor could cause problems, Bondrewd sends the Bidu and Romeo squads to intercept their guests, while also evacuating the children residing within the base. We don't have to wait long to find out who's got Bondrewd on pins and needles, as we pan over to Srajo accompanied by 4 other members of Hail X, Nishigora not among them. And despite flashing a smile that would bring most men to their knees... Huh, that was weird. All I did was look at the panel. You know what? Just move on to the next panel. I'll be fine. There you go. Thanks. Despite that look, two Shroud stand in Srajo's way. Luckily, both the words of her teammate and Bondrewd's arrival halt Srajo from losing her cool. With Bondrewd's arrival, Srajo quickly gets to the point and asks to use the altar. Now, Bondrewd mentions the stone here. Now, he could just be referring to the altar and using different terminology than what I'm used to. However, I think there might be more to it. Now, I could be wrong, but hear me out. A few pages from now, Bondrewd will mention a relic in Srajo's possession, and how much of a waste it would be if it were lost to the 6th layer. And knowing Bondrewd's personality, I believe here he's showing concern for the stone, aka Srajo's relic, not the altar. Until we learn more, there's no way for me to confirm this, but keep it in the back of your mind for the future. Moving on though, Bondrewd brings up the topic of submitting the proper paperwork before Srajo's last dive, and requests that they stay 7 days in order for the paperwork to be finalized. I'm sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face there. I'm pretty sure there isn't a white whistle alive who would actually fill out paperwork. Srajo states as much and becomes quite miffed at the prospect of having to wait any longer. Before Srajo could snap though, Hatman here steps in and explains the situation to Bondrewd, stating that their companion, Nishigora, after pursuing the Miko, has disappeared within the 6th layer, and thus they are going down in pursuit of them. Bondrewd applauds Srajo for going after someone on such little info, despite her self-proclaimed status of coward. And this is where Srajo tells Bondrewd to cut the crap. As more Umber hands start shuffling in, it's obvious that Bondrewd had zero intention of letting them pass from the start. And here, ladies, gentlemen, and that techno-colored rainbow in between, is where things get interesting. You can dive without the proper procedures, but I've heard that all the members of Hail Hex, save for yourself, are beast form Juusou. Those beings that should not exist, who are used as offerings right after their birth. Just how did you gather them all together?
You think I'm telling you?
Whatever the case, that relic you have, and the taboo you have committed, are both things with value. I simply cannot allow them to go to a place that they won't return from. It would be an awful waste. This is an extremely large information drop. Now, I had previously stated in my Chapter 63.2 review that Hatman here looked like he had seen his fair share of the curse. However, it has now been revealed that the curse has nothing to do with it. This distorted appearance is not a result of the curse, but instead is a result of being born a beast form Juusou. Now, seeing beast form implies the existence of other forms, but we'll put that off to the side for now. It is clear, however, that beast form Juusou aren't exactly welcomed into the world with open arms. Instead, they're used as offerings to what exactly is unclear. Nonetheless, the fact that they're still alive is breaking some form of taboo. This isn't really a concern for Bondrewd though, as the arrival of a rare relic alongside equally rare test subjects is an opportunity far too tantalizing to pass up. Of course, Srajo isn't just gonna sit there and become a test subject, ordering the other members of Hail Hex to take the release stance, which suggests the existence of other stances, which we'll get back to later. With this order, the battle between Bondrewd's Umbra Hands and Srajo's Hail Hex begins. Also, this thing on Srajo's shoulder is a snick, and I don't know how I didn't realize that before. And with that, we finally return to the present, and it appears that Srajo had told her story after hearing that Team Rico had also tussled with the Lord of Dawn. Though it's hard to tell when Srajo's story took place, Nanachi mentions that it may have been due to Srajo's battle that Bondrewd was lacking in combat power when their group had arrived, which is something I had not considered. It's true that the only one that actually fought Team Rico was Bondrewd himself. You'd think Bondrewd would have called on the whole squad in order to beat down Reg into submission. Knowing what we know now though, it seems that the Umbra Hands were down a few members due to this fight. The group then arrives at their destination, the trial grounds. Reg, however, is not too thrilled about this, since he was promised a removal of the Ibaho scent that has been plaguing him. Srajo, not having forgotten Reg's situation, has merely brought them here first in order to burn some time, since the bath takes a while to get ready. In the meantime, Team Rico will be undergoing a trial of live combat. The combatants? Team Rico versus Nishigora. Now, this battle is supposed to prove that Team Rico is not a part of Miko's clan. Somehow. Maybe it's because Miko's clan fights in a very specific way, or maybe Nishigora just wants an excuse to fight someone. Either way, Srajo does state that seeing what cards Team Rico has to play is also a part of the trial, so I guess that works. If Team Rico wins, Srajo will exchange information with them, and if they lose, I guess that's never specified. Let's just assume that they won't get dessert with dinner if they lose. Team Rico then prepares for battle, with Reg being the frontliner, Rico and Prushka as support, and Fapta is just being adorable. Okay, in order to prevent that from happening again, here are all of Fapta's best moments from the chapter. And by that I mean all of them, because Fapta is the best. Reg then enters the ring against Nishigora, and after exchanging a few words, the trial begins. Reg starts the battle with a debris smokescreen, but Nishigora reveals that her shield's shockwave ability can easily disperse the debris. Reg then releases a rocket punch, and while it does surprise Nishigora and the other members of Hail Hex, Nishigora is able to block it. However, a direct hit is not what Reg was aiming for. Instead, he attempts to pull Nishigora down to the ground by looping his arm around one of the arena's spikes. This is unsuccessful though, as the gap in power between the two of them is just too great. Switching tactics, Reg releases his arm from around the spike, thus completely wrapping it around Nishigora. Then, by retracting his arm, Reg pulls Nishigora and himself together, unleashing a devastating kick. Nishigora, once again showing the difference in their respective abilities, is able to tank the hit with little damage. With Reg now within her grasp, Nishigora spins him like a windmill and then sends him flying with a shockwave from her shield. Despite this being a direct hit, Reg is able to recover. Meanwhile, Shirumi and Minai are astonished at Reg's abilities, specifically that he is not like them, likely referring to Reg not being a Juusou. Reg then decides to go all out, charging at Nishigora. Luckily, with Nanachi's help, Reg is able to dodge Nishigora's counterstrike by leaping upwards. This, however, reveals that the curse does not affect Reg, and thus Nishigora can plan for this going forward. Reg then goes for a headbutt. Unfortunately though, Nishigora is able to intercept it with her shield. Left wide open once again, Reg is absolutely pummeled by Nishigora, all the while she's laughing it up about how fun it is to pound someone who doesn't break. Just like a certain White Whistle did. but we'll come back to that later. Amidst Reig's pummeling, Riko blows her white whistle, and thus Prushka comes to Reig's aid. Now donning the drip, Reig unleashes a Nishigora is left baffled at Reig's sudden boost in speed. In response, Nishigora takes a stance in order to take Reig head on, and Reig delivers. The momentum that Reig is now able to gain due to the drip allows him to not just match Nishigora, but overwhelm her. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Nanachi and Riko, who now has a nosebleed due to her whistle, are cheering Reig on. Faputa, however, has noticed that Srajo is up to something. Back at the fight, despite the beating she has taken, Nishigora is still standing. And even worse, Reig's drip is starting to fade, which forces him to go all out in order to bring Nishigora down. Returning to the sidelines, Faputa's worries have become a reality as Srajo makes her move. Trejo commands Shirumi and Minai to take a wave-proof stance, which appears to be a stance that protects Juusou from the effects of the white whistle. Back at the fight, Reig lands a major gut punch on Nishigora before going for a finishing slam, but he's too late. Trejo has blown her whistle, and before she hits the ground, Nishigora also gains the drip, holding herself up with one hand. And you know, this is as good a time as any to bring up why Nishigora was so surprised by Reig's speed, as she too can transform. Maybe Juusou get different powers from the whistle. Maybe Reig is a special case. Maybe it's due to Reig being a relic. There are plenty of possibilities, but until we learn more about the transformation, we don't have an exact answer. Now, all juiced up, Nishigora can tell that Reig is still very new to the powers of the drip. With this sudden turn of events, Faputa asks if she should join in the fight, which would certainly be interesting to see, but Reig declines the offer. We then head into round 2 as Nishigora offers to train Reig in the ways of the drip. Reig proceeds to land another gut punch, but this time, Nishigora doesn't even flinch. Reig even states that she feels heavier than the Ryukuzai, and that her malice and strength also reminds Reig of the time he fought Ozen. See, I told you we'd come back to her. This is a poor decision by Reig though, as the mere mention of Ozen being equal in strength to her lights a fire in Nishigora's heart, as she claims that Ozen could never be as strong as her. Which I don't know about you all, but it definitely feels like Nishigora has had a bad past experience with Ozen. Reig, however, does not help his situation, as he tells Nishigora that he's fought Ozen before. For this, Reig gets a smack on the jaw and an absolutely crushing blow that sends him flying upwards. This isn't the end for Reig though, as the two continue to exchange blows. As it looks like things could turn into a full-blown bloodbath, a very jolly Tempeste arrives to inform the group that the bath is ready, though it seems that she may have come here without permission. This snaps Srajo back to reality, as she notices a very unhappy Faputa protecting Riko and Nanachi from the debris sent flying by the fight. This leads Srajo to declare an end to the trial, and to get Reig his bath. But he ain't going in alone apparently, as Nishigora says they're going in together.
My fellow Americans, I think we all know where this is going, so let's just skip to the end.
And on that note, we bring an end to chapter 64. This was a long chapter, and despite the majority of it being fighting, there was still a lot of info dumped on us. I'd say the biggest of which being the existence of the Juusou and their ability to transform via the power of the white whistle. Now, my personal theory on what a Juusou is and how they have the ability to transform is that they are human relic hybrids. Now, we know that they are not Narahede, since they apparently look like this from birth. They're also not robots like Reig, since they are not immune to the curse. So the best thing I can come up with is that they have the bodies of humans, yet have properties of relics, thus leading to their deformed appearances and ability to transform. It also explains why they'd be sacrificed at birth, cause I don't know if you all know this, but humans have a long history of sacrificing things we don't understand or find abnormal. Throughout the rest of the episode, we also learn about Srajo's mysterious relic, and that Reig has only touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to his new powers. We also get to see Bondrewd and receive new Faputa content, so this chapter was always going to be a 10 out of 10. Either way, what do you all think of the Juusou, and what are your theories about them? Make sure you leave them all down in the comments below. As per usual, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more going forward. As always though, this has been the Professor Z, and I will see you all next time.